Oh look, an envelope. What if it's full of anthrax? Do you even know what anthrax looks like? Yes? No? Fortunately for you, I happen to have a detailed presentation all about anthrax. Take a seat. Let's begin. Anthrax's scientific name is Bacillus anthracis. Blah blah blah, sciencey stuff. Blah 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 blah. What is this place? Who and what are you? Hello, I'm Anthrax, and I'm going to teach you all about me. First things first, you'll most likely never meet me in your daily life. That's cool, but I'm worried about getting sick from you. How do I avoid that? It probably won't be that hard. All you have to do is avoid Bacillus anthracis spores, and they don't grow in very many places, and they're quite hard to obtain. How will I know if I'm sick? Of course, I'll probably see the spores, but what if I'm unsure? There are many different symptoms of anthrax depending on the route of infection. They can range from a skin ulcer with a dark scab to difficulty breathing. You really want to get to the hospital before symptoms start showing up. Could you please go into more detail about the routes of infection? Sure. The first way is by breathing in anthrax spores, and that is lung anthrax. The second is skin anthrax, and that occurs when the spores are absorbed through a break in the skin, such as a cut. And the third is intestinal anthrax. That's when you end up eating the spores. I know I'm going to regret this, but could you tell us some of the symptoms of anthrax? Lung anthrax is the most likely form of disease after an intentional release of anthrax, which may be why you thought your mail had anthrax in it, because a while ago anthrax was sent to a congressman through the mail, and it was opened by his secretaries, and they got sick. Lung anthrax occurs by breathing in anthrax spores. After exposure, it usually takes 2 to 7 days until illness starts. First, there are a few days of symptoms like headache, cough, and muscle aches. Then, after a few days, there can be trouble breathing, chest pain, large lymph glands, worse headache, stomach pain, and vomiting or diarrhea. With lung anthrax, bacteria almost always enters the bloodstream, leading to severe illness or death. Skin anthrax. After a week, a painless skin blister will appear at the point of entry. This blister becomes a painless open sore and then a black scab. Intestinal anthrax. This occurs after eating undercooked meat from an animal that has the anthrax infection. An upset stomach will develop 2 to 5 days later. Then there can be bloody diarrhea, fever, and severe stomach pain. What do I do if I know I'm sick from anthrax? You can treat anthrax with antibiotics because they will cure most infections, although inhaled anthrax is harder to treat and can be fatal. These antibiotics can prevent anthrax disease, even if the anthrax spores have already gotten into your body. They work best when you start taking them as soon as possible after anthrax exposure, hopefully before the symptoms even begin to appear. They can be taken multiple ways, by injection or by mouth. And yes, there is a vaccine for anthrax. Fun fact, anthrax is not transmittable from person to person. You can only get anthrax from the anthrax spores. How do I protect myself from getting anthrax? Try to stay away from the anthrax spores, but also to lower your risk of getting anthrax from a natural source is to not eat meat that has not been properly slaughtered and cooked. Do not work with raw hides, fur, or skin, especially those of goats, sheep, or cows. If you live in a targetable area, to lower your risk of getting anthrax if terrorists release spores on purpose, is if you know you were exposed to a suspicious substance or if you were in an area thought to contain anthrax spores, it may help to wash your skin and hair thoroughly with soap and water. It may also help to change and wash your clothing, or if you cannot wash your clothes immediately, put them in a plastic bag to keep them separate from your other things. Once I have anthrax in me, what does it do? Anthrax bacteria attacks all human cells. How they do it is by producing 3 proteins, which on their own are not toxic, but together are deadly. They are the protective antigen, the edema factor, and the lethal factor. First, the protective antigen binds to the cell surface and creates a channel in the cell membrane that allows the edema factor and the lethal factor to enter the cell. The edema factor, when combined with the protective antigen, forms a toxin known as the edema toxin. The lethal factor, when combined with the protective antigen, forms a toxin known as the lethal toxin. It is this toxin that does the most damage within the cell.